And we'll get the ball rolling. All right, amazing. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our final project showcase. My name is Yesenia Fallingstad. I am a community manager here at Flatiron School, and here today with Eve and Cecilia with some really awesome final projects for you all to see. Really excited for you to see the caliber and the quality of this work. It's just such awesome. It's just an awesome testament to what they've gone through over the past 15 weeks and what they have been able to create in their final project. So really excited that you all get to be a part of it today. Today, you will have the chance to go ahead and watch their final projects. They're going to go ahead and walk us through everything, and then you will have a chance to ask some questions about their project specifically. So you can ask questions in the chat as long as you have it to everyone. We should all be able to see it. And then you can also use the Q&A function, and I'll make sure to check both places and get all of your questions answered. And then after we are done presenting, since it's just two of our presenters today, both are software engineering. So if you are here interested in our data science or our UX UI program, I have links to previous presentations with that that I will go ahead and drop in the chat. And yes, I feel like there's something I'm missing. Oh, and at the very end, we'll have a chance to ask a few questions about their own personal experience going through the program and what they're up to now. So I see a question from Nancy. Both just graduated, like I think 3-4 weeks ago. So I believe the answer is no, but we can talk more about that a little bit later. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have Cecilia with us today sharing her project Empowered.
All right. So hi, everybody. Thank you guys for coming today. My name is Cecilia Chimento, and I'm a software engineer and a critical care nurse. So when we were tasked with creating our capstone projects that were supposed to be reflective of what our passions are, I really wanted to do something that would have an impact on patient care. So I opted to do something revolving the data that is recorded about patients. When they're in the hospital, they have this high volume of data being recorded about them all the time in their electronic medical record. And that data allows physicians to make decisions about their care plan using real-time data. So essentially then they get discharged home and they don't have anywhere to store any of that information, and they're dealing with multiple prescriptions, vital signs, etc. So that's where Empower comes in. It's an at-home EMR that allows patients to take control of their own healthcare data. So I've logged in already to this patient account, Emily. As you can see, Emily already has several prescriptions, health metrics, and alerts that have been stored in our database. When Emily stores a prescription in our database, it populates over here on the right-hand side in this prescription schedule that has basically the time of day it's due, its generic name, and its dosage. Then in the middle here, excuse me, we have a chart of our health metric data that basically allows Emily to kind of look and get a quick glance of the trends in her healthcare data. And this can be filtered based on the type of metric that she's recorded. So if she just wants to see her heart rate, that's an option. It can also be sorted by month, week, or day. Right now, day just has like one thing for each. So that will be that. If we then want to go look at our health metrics, this is where Emily can, or any user really can store new health metrics. So if we look down here at today's health metrics, we can see that Emily woke up this morning, she recorded her blood sugar, her heart rate, her blood pressure, so different vital signs. And then she recorded taking each of her prescribed medications. So then at 8:30 this morning, she started feeling a little lightheaded. So she recorded that using the symptoms over here. She could do that there. And then she could also record taking a prescription here. But really what we want to do is we want to record the blood pressure that she took. As you can see, she already recorded that she had a heart rate of 61 at 8:35. So let's say her blood pressure was 89/60. A user can record any and all of these metrics. So they can put in just one blood pressure, or they can put in each individual input option in the form. And we're going to say that she took this at 8:30. And we're going to submit that. Oh, just kidding. Let's try that again. So, okay. So submitting that, we see that we get a health metric alert that her blood pressure is outside of normal limits. So the vital sign you entered appears to be outside of normal range. So please contact your provider, especially if you're experiencing any symptoms. So you can either acknowledge this, but I'm going to click outside of the box to show you on the dashboard page what that would look like. So the beauty of this form or this page is that Emily can then call her doctor, say, I'm having this weird symptom. I took my medications. These were my vital signs. And she can download this PDF, which then allows her to show that data in real time to her physician. So she could email that to them or take it in with her to her next appointment. So let's say then her doctor also says, I'd really like to see what your blood pressures have looked like for the last 2 weeks, if this is the symptom that you're experiencing with your medications. So she'd also have the option to do that. And she could do that by sorting filtering out any different health metric that she would want and based on any date since she's entered a health metric. Also, our health metrics can be edited by clicking the button there. So if I wanted to add a comment, really lightheaded, I could. And I could also delete if I wanted to. So going back to our dashboard page, as you can see here now on this alerts page, we have a badge that shows that she has one unacknowledged alert. So let's go take a look at that next. So again, on the alerts page, it basically just says like, this isn't meant to be healthcare advice, but we do recommend contacting your provider if you're having one of these, if you have one of these alerts and are experiencing any symptoms. So to acknowledge this, we can press the button. And then if we wanted to add a comment here, so let's say she did called doctor, scheduled appointment. So we can do that. These are also just, sorted chronologically. One thing that I would like to do for future development is to have these be based off of a range selected either by the patient or based off of their own trends, kind of calculated by the app. So going back to our dashboard, let's take a look at prescriptions now. So the prescriptions can be searched based on generic or brand names. So let's say we want to look at our metoprolol prescription. When we open our prescription details, it shows the generic name, brand names, the oral route or the route, the dosage and frequency. These can be edited from this page. So let's say the doctor wants to decrease her dose of metoprolol because of her blood pressure getting low. That's how we would edit that. This also shows every time the medication has been recorded as being taken so that she can just kind of take a quick glance and make sure she's taken her medications as prescribed. If we go back to our prescriptions page, we can also add a prescription here. So let's say she's having some anxiety, so they're getting her started on something for that, and she's going to take that as needed. So now we can see that that's down here at the bottom. And if we go back to our dashboard page again, we can see that the schedule over here has been updated. So we have our medication as needed at the bottom, and then our metoprolol dosage has been updated. So now let's take a look at our final component, which is this medications database. So basically this allows a patient to search for their medications and kind of learn about them. So lisinopril is her other blood pressure medication. So clicking on the view details here, we can see that lisinopril has its drug class, its indications and usage. It also has dosage, administration, contraindications, and adverse effects. So just clicking through those really quickly, but basically it just allows patients to get an idea of why they're taking this medication and then other information about it. The box warning down at the bottom, I wanted to be really, to stand out pretty significantly in a bright font. Because I feel like this is something that patients tend to overlook. You get that whole slew of information at the pharmacy, and box warnings tend to be really important. So I just wanted to make sure that the user could see that very easily. So that's basically it for Empower. Thank you guys so much for watching my presentation. And does anybody have any questions?
Really awesome job, Cecilia. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
Got a question about your stack.
Yeah, so basically the front end is developed with JavaScript and React, and then I use Material UI for the kind of design aesthetic of the app. And then the back end is Python. So yeah, I see that in the chat. It is Python and Flask with SQL Alchemy. So and I'm gonna go ahead and put my LinkedIn in the chat as well in case anybody would like to connect or has any further questions.
Gorgeous. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, we got one in the Q&A. Why the transition from nursing to software?
Yeah, so that's that's a complicated question. I, I love nursing. It means a lot to me. I am still working as a nurse. I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to be able to make a bigger impact at one time. Being a critical care nurse, I have 1 to 2 patients at a time, depending on the day. And I do truly believe that with technology, we can make a lot of improvements in patients' lives and nurses' lives, honestly. There's a lot of new developments in the healthcare sector with AI, especially, that I think have a really significant promise of really improving patient outcomes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that. It's always really scary making such a huge change, but I think that you're in the right spot considering like how great your project was and everything.
Thank you.
Got a question from Sama. How was your bootcamp experience and was it in person or remote?
So I did a remote program. I took 3 months off of work or 4 months off of work to complete it. That's kind of the beauty of being a nurse. I could quit my job and then come back to it. But I I did the remote version, which is basically like a Zoom cohort. But I will say, I don't know if any of my cohort mates are participating right now or watching this, but honestly, like they became some of my best friends in a very short amount of time. Seeing people, you kind of think that like seeing people virtually, you wouldn't be able to connect with them, but that's definitely not the case, especially when going through a boot camp like this. We all just really, focused on helping each other get through the day to day of like studying and everything and learning. I would say also that my instructors were amazing. I think that Flatiron really really puts an emphasis on finding good people to have in student facing roles, especially to make sure that they are producing the best students, because at the end of the day, that's what they're trying to do. So overall, positive experience. I learned a lot. I didn't know anything about software engineering before I started. And as you can see, produced a good program. So that I'm really proud of. And I can't believe that I learned how to do all of that in just 16 weeks. So
You should be really proud of yourself. That was so awesome.
thank
Yeah, and
you.
it's so fun to see like how different cohorts really mesh and like become such good friends. You don't have to be in person to really have that kind of an
Right.
experience. So,
Yeah, absolutely agree.
any other questions? It's okay if not, we can always circle back. So if you think of anything, go ahead and just type it in the chat or in the Q&A function, and we'll make sure to circle back to it. But if not, we will go ahead and move on to Eve, who's going to be sharing her project Palette with us today.
Hi, I'm Eve. I graduated from the software engineering course 3 weeks ago, and for my capstone, I made Palette, which is a gallery site like ArtStation or DeviantArt, except instead of uploading your artwork, you create it with an in-browser paint program with the idea that this will create a stronger sense of community. It's not a site like ArtStation where you go to show off your portfolio and get work. It's more one where you can see artwork and then immediately have access to the same tools that the person who made it did. So this is the home page with all of the artwork. Following is implemented. So I'm following one person with one submission, but if I want to follow more, I can see them there. There's a profile page where you can edit your info quickly and see all of your own artwork. There's titles, bios, and a nested reply system, so you can tell by the indentation. In terms of the actual paint program, this is it. So you can resize the canvas and it'll, you can do it at any point throughout the project. Some basic HTML, canvas, brush tools. You're able to save your work and come back to it later. So if you save it, it immediately takes it to your drafts page where you can go back to it. And then you can publish it. And it'll take you to its new page. You can view it here and on your profile. And the last thing I would say is that even if you're not logged in, you can still download whatever you make for later. So yeah, that's most of what there is to Palette. The front end is made with React with Bootstrap for the styling and React Hook Form for the form data in this page and the login and the comments. The back end is Flask with SQLite and SQL Alchemy mediating them with Marshmallow and Flask RESTful. For next steps, I have the backend for likes implemented, so I would do that. Adding more features to the Paint program, like Paint Bucket, Magic Wand, selection, transforming features. Editing and deleting comments and artwork would be good to add. Also more user feedback on the validation. It's hard to break the site, but sometimes if you try to publish something without a title or a body, it won't let you, but there are places where it could inform the user more what they're doing wrong. And also, the last thing I would want to definitely add before deploying it, is lighter responses from the database. It works fine right now, but if there were a million pieces of artwork, it would probably slow the site down the way I have things structured. So yeah, let me open the chat because it always closes it. Are you taught to implement AI? There were some modules on that were optional, and I had disappeared. Yeah, and I did have other people in my cohort who implemented AI for their projects, so it's definitely viable.
Thank you for sharing. It looks awesome. Have another question in the Q&A. Cool project. Do you have a background in art?
I don't know why I wanted to make this, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Would there be, this is me just thinking, I have like this app on my iPad. Would you be able to create the mobile app in the future so you could use like an Apple Pencil with it?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a tablet to test it, but I imagine it wouldn't be that hard to get it working with, the main site too. I think that's definitely a very important part of an artwork site, so that you don't have to use your mouse to do everything.
Totally. Any
But I
other
did get
questions?
my friends to do the artwork you see on the main page, and I was impressed what they did with.
Eve, that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask if you had drawn all of those.
I made all the titles and bios for them though, so they didn't have to.
Got a question. Why software engineering? And you both can take a pass at this if you want.
I just always had an interest in it, but didn't really have the right opportunity to work on, at the very least, web development. And Flatiron School gave me a lot of opportunity to do collaborative work, which was the best way to learn it for me, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I kind of already covered this a little bit. For me, it was just, I felt like throughout my nursing career, I saw a lot of ways that tech could improve things, especially patient outcomes. And there's a lot of things in tech that are really frustrating for nurses, just with things not working the way that they're supposed to. And the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like a good route for me. I took some classes at a local community college first to see if I would like it before committing to a boot camp, because it is a pretty intense experience. But once I took those classes, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. So I hopped right into Flatiron.
Thank you both for sharing. Sorry I keep going off camera. I'm having like a coughing attack thing, but I would love to hear both of you if you have like a proud moment or a breakthrough that you want to share with us from your time in boot camp.
So I will say that the boot camp experience is like kind of a lot of ups and downs because you're learning something new every 3 weeks or so. So you get to this moment in each phase where you're like, oh my goodness, I got it. It finally makes sense. And you have this like light bulb click moment where just it all comes together. And then you're on to the next phase. So then you're kind of like, okay, I'm starting over and I'm having to learn a different framework or a different language, like especially when we went from front end with JavaScript and React and then to back end with Python. My brain just was like, what is happening? So I think that honestly, the thing that I'm most proud of is just embracing that cycle and embracing the fact that when I was starting over with a new phase, I was going to feel super uncomfortable with what I was doing, but that light bulb moment would come if I just kept practicing, and it came every time. So I think that that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, you definitely get 3 or 4 days of relief after finishing each unit.
Yeah.
For mine, I think I'm happy that like I approached each main project every several weeks. Not trying to like make the most polished thing possible, but to teach myself as many new things as I could, which each time resulted in, me being held up and not sure if I would have like something that would end up being a nice presentation for the deadline. And that definitely happened with this last one too, because I had a lot of ideas for the back end, which means that the site didn't function properly until I got them all done. But once it clicked in place, it was like, I felt like the site was already made for me, which was great.
Yeah, I can feel that too, Eve. Like I switched from semantic UI to material UI, which is like the styling that I was using for my site halfway through making the project. So I had to like go back and redo so much work, but it was just like the aesthetic wasn't what I wanted it to be. So kind of the opposite of what you were saying, but it in a way I had to like relearn a whole new thing halfway through making my capstone. So it was an interesting experience.
Y'all are resilient. That is a lot of work.
Or
Um,
stubborn, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you
don't know.
know. When did you start working on the capstone project?
So the capstone project was our final phase of the boot camp. So we had basically like 2.5 weeks. Each phase is 3 weeks long. And you get the requirements presented to you for the capstone project at the end of phase 4, like the last day of phase 4. And then you have a couple of days to kind of figure out your idea and then present it to your instructor. And then you have like 2.5 weeks to make that idea become a reality.
Yeah. And you have a lot of practice with that because there is a week to week and a half long project that you work on with other people for the first 4 phases.
A lot of work done in a really short amount of time. That design sprint goes hard. So great job. How do you feel looking for jobs soon, and how have you prepared?
Um, I think that the job search is daunting right now. It's like when I graduated from Flatiron, I felt this huge sense of relief and accomplishment. But then there's also this other, it's like we call it phase 6, is finding a job. And it's definitely, it's got its ups and downs. I think that the biggest thing you can do is networking, which you're going to hear over and over again once you get into the program. If you live near a city or anything that has in-person networking opportunities, which unfortunately I don't because I'm in New Mexico, which just doesn't have a lot going on. But I've heard that those can be really great for networking opportunities, and I've just been trying to use LinkedIn to the best of my ability. I also think that a big part of it is just trying to stay optimistic. You know, you have to be, like we said, resilient or stubborn in the face of a lot of no's right now. But I think I keep telling myself, like, all it takes is one person. It takes one person seeing my resume and giving me a chance. And, you know, eventually that will happen.
Yeah, I had to I had a lot of other life stuff that I had to put off until the end of Flatiron, so it kind of delayed me working on job stuff. But um having a career coach to work with has helped a lot, definitely. And was which I should have just done that before Flatiron too, 'cause it's cool.
Right. One of my friends actually asked me, like, how did you get a career coach? And how do I get a career coach? And I was like, well, it came with Flatiron. It's great. Um, so I would definitely, you know, working with the career coach has been super helpful and has helped maintain that optimism that I was talking about.
Yeah, I always tell grads that, it's like the long-term mindset of like the long, like I'm going to get there no matter what. Instead of like this very quick, like I'll get a job in 2 months kind of expectation.
Mhm.
Got another question. Do you work on projects or study outside of class time? Full time is 8 hours a day. Yes, class time is full 8 hours a day. But I get
Yeah, so I would say with the live, did you do the live as well, Eve? Or were you
Uh,
flex?
I did remote, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I was remote, but they called it like live, which just meant that we had an instructor that gave us like live lectures every day, Monday through Friday, and was kind of like our resource. Um, they basically the way it's structured is you have 8 hours of class time a day, and our cohort was blended between East and West Coast, which meant that our times were a little different than the normal cohort times. But basically we were all present for like the middle of the day, and then like West Coast had time later in the afternoon, whereas East Coast had time earlier in the morning, kind of with their instructor. And I did end up doing a lot of work outside of class. Mostly because I am who I am and I'm kind of a perfectionist about things. So like I push myself to do more outside of class. I don't think that everybody else in my cohort necessarily spent as much time as I did. And then when it came to projects, it was kind of up to like if you were working with a partner, it was kind of up to you and your partner's agreement as to how that would be structured. So like I had some partners who would be like, oh, let's work on Saturday this week to just get it knocked out so that next week we have time to focus for the code challenge, retake, or whatever it may be for their situation. But and then I had partners who were like, nope, I'm only available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 my time. So it just depended on who you were working with. So
Yeah, definitely the lecture takes up several hours a day maximum, and then you're left with a lot of free time to work through the course material
Mhm.
by yourself, but you're probably in a Zoom breakout room, so you can talk to anyone else in your cohort and your instructor.
got a question. Are you open to do freelance work?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am. I am open to anything, and I'm also, you know, I want to continue learning. That's kind of what I'm focusing on right now, as well as my job search, is just continuing to learn new technologies that weren't necessarily covered in the boot camp. So,
Sorry, what was the question again? I was reading the next one.
are you open to freelance work?
Oh yeah, and this answers the next one too, is that it really just depends on the project, you know.
That's true. Yeah.
And the next one, I mean, I'll let you read the question first.
Sorry. The next question is, do you have a preference for front end or back end, and will you be applying for full stack roles?
Yeah, I definitely had a preference for backend throughout the course, and what I end up doing will probably be more focused on that. But again, it depends on the job description, you know, if it's an interesting company.
Yeah, I would just second what Eve said. I feel like a lot of the posts that I'm seeing right now are kind of full stack oriented. Like they want you to have a little bit of experience with both aspects of software engineering, but they seem to be a little bit more focused in one direction, if that makes sense. Like it's like we want you to be full stack, but you'll probably be working mostly with our client facing stuff. So it just kind of, and I think that what Eve said, it more for me depends on the job as opposed to whether it's full stack front end or back end. I think I gravitate more toward front end personally. But I don't know. I'm open to everything because I enjoyed linking the back end and the front end. I don't necessarily enjoy back end coding specifically, but I liked the control that it gave me to do the whole like full stack experience.
Love that. I always love hearing too, like what different pieces of the program people leave being like most passionate about. So thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
What is a piece of advice that you would give someone who is about to start the program?
Time management skills are your friend. If you don't have them, if you are like me and have terrible ADHD, do whatever you can to grow them. And if that means like writing down a strict schedule for yourself that you're going to do your best to stick to, that's what it means. Just having those, those abilities to just kind of maintain what you need to do are super important because you don't want to get behind. Like people in my cohort who got behind were just like constantly panicking, trying to catch up, which just isn't a good feeling for anybody.
Yeah, I would say if you're stuck, you will probably get to a point where you aren't. I mean, there are a lot of people in the first phase that were really struggling, and then by the fifth, we're like so happy with how far they'd come with it. Yeah, I would say that.
I love that. Yeah, like it's one phase does not define you.
And at the same time, if you are doing really well in one phase, the next one might be totally different subject matter. But that's okay. You will have a few weeks.
Mhm. Embracing that process of learning is, really important because you're not going to feel comfortable in the first days of any of the phases unless you somehow have like magical software engineering experience from before. But
Did either of you get to work with any hackathons and like work with any product design or data science teams?
not yet. I've been looking at the emails, like the This is Flatiron weekly emails that come out, seeing what opportunities there are around me. I felt like when they were happening while I was in the cohort, I just didn't have time to commit to it. So
Totally fair. I was just curious. Oh, and Eve just dropped their LinkedIn. Perfect. Make sure to connect.
Yeah,
I am gonna go. Sorry, Eve.
I was
What
just
were you
saying I
gonna
didn't
say?
have to do that either. But the summer of code thing is definitely something that I found out about too late this year and definitely be doing.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure our teams are working on having a few more this summer and fall. So definitely keep an eye out in like the alumni Discord and everything. I went ahead and dropped a couple of our previous showcases with data science and UX UI product design if that is something that you were here for and you didn't get to see today. So go ahead and you can click that. Do we have any other questions for our two alums? Anything else you two are dying to share with with your fans?
Not that I could think of off the top of my head. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, both of our LinkedIns are in the chat. So speaking for myself, if you have any questions about Flatiron or software engineering or my project, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Inbox is open.
Freelance work accepted. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.